Oh yeah, I thought it was going to go differently, but it'd be fine.
Good evening and welcome to Virginia's Views and Vibes. I'm your host, Ginny Gardner, and tonight we have a very special show and a very special guest. He's the author of Pen, Paper, Prayer, a true story of death and life. James P. Holmes, welcome, and thanks for driving all the way down here from Cape Cod on this
so welcome.
beautiful day.
Thank you for having me.
And we talked a little bit before the show. I admire you so much because you had this experience, but you overcame a tremendous amount of adversity in bringing back your health and becoming you again. So I admire that, and tenacity, dedication, and determination, and you have it all.
Well, thank you. It's been a process.
Yeah.
One I never expected to have to go through, but when there's, because I damaged my brain so badly in a car accident, I had no choice. I had to move forward, and it boiled down to putting just one foot in front of the other, day after day, and trying to do the best you could. With I had a bunch of other broken bones and punctured organs, so it was a long haul, and there's much more to it than that. But it was quite the time.
Yeah, and in the book, I just have to say this: Pen, Paper, Prayer, James P. Holmes, and truthfully, every page of this book, there's no blah 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 in it. We talked about that. There's no filler. This book, from start to finish, is captivating, and it tells the true human story. And let's talk about that a little bit. Sure. You were 24 years old?
23.
23 years old, my God.
I wasn't much of a person. I was young, I was kind of a punk, and I didn't have much of a direction in life, and I didn't know what to do with myself, and I was scared to death of dying, because it was nothing more to me, even though I would go to church, nothing more than just a hole in the ground, and you're black and you're cold, and it's for eternity.
Yeah.
And that perception of death made me wish I hadn't been born.
Wow.
And so what do? I go out and I hit black ice and smash into a tree and end up dying.
Yeah. And the fact that you survived, and you did die. You died, and the fact that you're here today is an amazing story, because back then there were no cell phones.
Exactly.
The people that found you in the woods had to start knocking on doors in the bitter cold in a January. Was it January?
January, yeah.
What date?
I think it was 1980.
And what was the date? Do you remember the date?
I think it was the day before New Year's. Much so it might have been December.
Wow.
It's a long time ago. It's 44 years ago now.
Wow.
It's amazing.
So you're a 23-year-old kid. I mean, I have two sons. I've had 23-year-old boys, and my husband, we were young when we got married. So you say that, but all guys, more than daughters, have a tendency to be a little bit, they feel their oats. So you're out you had your own apartment, living with your friend. You go out to a bar or a restaurant bar, and on this bitter cold night, living the dream, independent, had a job.
I didn't like me, and I didn't like my life. Nope. I knew I could do better, and there were better things, and I was hurting too many people, and I didn't like that, and I didn't want to live that way. And I actually, when I pray, I'd be like, wipe my slate clean so I can start over again. And I'd imagine, like, a bad car accident.
Yeah.
And then, a head injury, so that everything's gone, and again, I can start over again.
Yeah.
And so what happens? That's exactly what happens. So be careful what you wish for or you imagine, because, did I bring that upon myself?
No.
I don't know.
No. You didn't. You might have seen your future, that you were going to wipe your slate clean, but it was not going to be easy, and it wasn't easy. And again, I urge people to read this book. It's a near-death experience. It's exactly what it is. And having lived through something like that myself, it's real. It happens. And we learn a lot from it. We do. And
I remember leaving my spirit leaving my body and going up into a corner and looking down on me when I was in a bed. It's crazy.
wow.
It really is cool.
That part of it was it hadn't happened yet, or is that what happened in the future piece of this? When you went home, did you see yourself in the bed in your sister's room at that point, or was that you looked at yourself and it was your present life, kind of, sort of?
No, that's when I died. And I was in my car.
Wow.
And all the way across town in my parents' old house. Yeah, I was in my sister's brass bed. Oh, it was beautiful. It was a beautiful summer's day like today, and the wind was just gently going in and out of the open windows, and the linen curtains were just moving back and forth, and I could hear a car going down the street occasionally, and the bed was just perfect. It was beautiful. I was so happy to be there.
Yeah.
And that's when my spirit left my body, and that's when I died.
Yeah. And
But it was beautiful.
yeah. At that point, because I remember my husband's father had a near-death experience. I don't know if he told you. He was probably about, I think he was close to 50 when it happened. He had had surgery. And it was so beautiful, he told the children when he came home. It was so beautiful, he almost didn't want to go back. And it sounds like, in a way, for you, maybe the beauty of the calmness of your sister's room, and that the house of feeling where you were warm and comfortable and always safe. Sounds like you kind of had. Were you told to come back? Did someone say to you, you can't stay?
No, all of a sudden, for some reason, I was back in the room. I was still in the bed, but now I was beside the bed, looking down on myself, and I had to walk around the end of the bed, and then out towards the door that went into the hallway.
Yeah.
And it was a struggle, like I was walking through cold mud, and I was looking down at myself, and that's where I wanted to be. I wanted to be back in that warm and beautiful bed again, but I had no choice. I had to walk past myself out into the hallway where something dark fell from me, and then I was alive again. I did not want to come back here and be alive again. It was much easier to be dead.
Wow.
True story.
Let's talk a little bit about, if you want,
Sure.
that night. You hit black ice. It happened like that.
Yes.
There was no warning. And in many ways, do you remember anything about hitting the black ice, or
Nope.
no?
I remember getting into my car with my friend Steve and heading home, and that's the last I recall of anything.
Did Steve remember anything, or do you know? Or?
No, he wasn't hurt nearly as bad as I was. He was only comatose for like 2 or 3 days,
Really?
and then he got up and he was pretty much fine. I mean, thankfully.
Right.
He was my good buddy. We had a lot of fun together.
Yeah.
But I've often thought that might come back someday. Me recalling hitting the black ice,
be.
but it never has. And
Could be.
it serves no purpose now.
Right.
I'm past that.
Yeah. It's funny you say that. Yeah. Yeah. This is hard for me too, and you know why. When you woke up in the hospital, there was so much that happened. There was so much that happened. The girl that and the boy, the man that found you, was a fluke.
It was a fluke, and the story, again, I don't know anything about it. I was just told the story, but they were on their way home, boyfriend and girlfriend, and the girlfriend made the boy, she thought she saw a reflector in the woods, at the intersection.
Yeah.
We went off the opposite side into a tree, And she was like, you know, I see something over there. We should really go take a look at that. It might be a bad accident. And he just wanted to get home.
Yeah.
You know, go to bed. And she was like, no, we gotta go. So they pulled over, he got out, went to the car, sees us. I mean, there's blood and brains everywhere. He thinks we're dead.
Yeah.
So he runs out of the woods. I can't blame him. He gets back into the car and says, we gotta go. But she says, he says, we have to get help.
Yeah.
No cell phones. So what do you
Right.
do at 1 o'clock in the morning?
Bang on doors.
Start banging on doors.
Yeah.
And one person let them in, and they
That's it.
finally got the EMTs there, you know. They took Steve first,
Yeah.
because he wasn't hurt that bad, or as bad as I was. They
They assumed you were going to survive.
well, it was going to be jaws of life for both of us, and I was hurt much worse than he was, so they just figured they'd save who was worth saving at the time.
Yeah. This was on the Cape
Oh, yeah.
in Falmouth.
In Falmouth, in the
Okay.
intersection of Route 151 and Sandwich Road.
Have you ever talked with the people that found you, or did you have the opportunity to speak with them? Or?
A long time ago I did. I mean,
Yeah.
for years, my brain wasn't working right.
Right.
I know I talked to them. They said, look, when we were just in training then. They're all retired by now.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
it's
Right.
crazy. But they said, look, when we pulled up, we saw the scene. They just said, stay back and watch, and we've got to handle this.
Yeah.
So that's how that went down.
But they knew they saved you.
Yeah.
They knew they saved you.
Oh, yeah. Well, they shipped me off to the hospital. I mean, they wanted to med-flight me or get me to a
Yeah.
Boston hospital, but they knew I wouldn't make the trip. You know, they were lucky I was going to make it to Hyannis. They sent me to Cape Cod Hospital because they got a brand new machine there, a CAT scan unit.
Wow.
And they knew they would need that to look at my brain and my injuries. So I was lucky in that sense.
Yeah. And you're talking a little about your mom and dad, and a lot about your mom and dad. And your mother never lost hope.
My mother, she hung on as long as she could. But I wasn't responsive.
Yeah.
I wasn't showing any signs that I wasn't brain dead. You know, my heart was beating, my organs were good, but my brain just wasn't doing anything for days on end. And so finally she did. Not that she gave up, but she prayed to God that
Yeah.
I die now. That I just take me the pain away from
okay.
me and my suffering that she imagined I was in, but I wasn't in any pain.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything.
Being a mom, she wanted her child out of pain, safe, and if she wanted you back, but she also didn't want to see you suffer.
Exactly.
But her faith played a huge part of this. And so you get to Hyannis, and your brain wasn't showing signs for about 5 days.
At least 5
5
days.
days.
I'm not sure when it started to show something, but I mean, it was, you know, everyone. One day I moved a toe. I shouldn't say I moved it. A toe moved.
A toe moved.
You know, it could have been reflexes. It could have been anything. It didn't mean my brain was functioning again. But the nurses called my sisters, and everyone went to the hospital, and they were crying and hugging.
Yeah. So then there's a part of this that, and this is important because your sister had friends that prayed over you. And
They were faith healers.
yes. Yes. And you simultaneously, when they prayed over you, you came back. You started to in the book, I think it said about the same time you knew you had to come back, and that's when you kind of woke up right around that same period.
Well, let me tell it.
Yes, you may, of
the
course,
faith healers
of
a little
course.
bit. Now,
Yes.
what they did.
Yes.
They were friends of my oldest sister and her wife, and they were great friends. And they just came down to the hospital. No one asked them to. And they showed up and said, we're going to go in and do a faith healing on your brother. And my sister Marty was like, what are you talking about? There are doctors everywhere here. What good can it do? And he's in a coma and he's on life support. Why? Yeah. And she said, you know, have faith in us, just let us do it. Yeah. So they went into my room and they each found a bare spot, patch of skin, like maybe on my stomach or on my leg. Yeah. And they touched me. And then when in the forest, if a deer has a foal, and the foal is unresponsive, they lick it to stimulate organs or what isn't working in the fawn's body. I believe that's the correct term. Yeah. So that's what they envisioned they were doing to me. I mean, it's kind of a crazy and kind of a stretch, but that might have worked. I don't know. Either God brought me back because he had a higher purpose for me, or it was in conjunction with them. I'm not sure what happened, but all I know is that I eventually came back.
I don't know what happened. What I know is we often think of ourselves as insignificant and unimportant. And we don't think of all the billions of people in the world, that how could God be listening and hear me? Yes. And we just think we're why would he be involved in my life? I'm unimportant. And you know, what we forget is God just wants us to ask him. We always hear, I was brought up Catholic too, so catechism class, talk to God, talk to the saints and the Blessed Mother, and we think, that's so silly. That's so silly. He does, what would he want? A little girl from Auburndale, a little Italian girl from Auburndale, just a mother and a grandma. He's not listening to me. But we were taught, talk to God, and I think certainly what your sister's friends did for you, which was they asked God. They said, Father, whether it was by looking at a deer in the woods and bringing the deer to life or not, they were asking the Father, our Father, to bring you back. And they asked God, and God always answers. What we've kind of learned from that day forward. God does answer us. He responds. He may not give us the answer we want.
That's very true.
But he's there.
Yep.
He's there, and I think for you, your friends, your sister's friends, ask God. Help him. We need him to come back, and God had plans for you. God absolutely had plans for you, because your book absolutely proves it. So at that point, you within the next couple of days, you came out of it, but you couldn't talk right away. Is that right?
Well, it's a combination of things. My mother, like it might have been that day or the day after, she turned me over into God's hands, saying, God, please take him, just end the misery. That's when the next day, again, a toe moved. Wow. And all of a sudden, hope was back. Right. And I did progress slowly from there. And coming out of a coma is a crazy, crazy thing, because 1 minute I'm driving home with my buddy, then 13 days later, where am I?
Wow.
I mean, it's obvious where I am, but why? And fortunately, another sister, Nancy, was there at the end of the bed with her husband, Skip, and she saw the fear in my eyes, because I was petrified.
Yeah.
I had no idea what was going on and why I was there. And I couldn't ask because the tubes and my throat was dried out and everything. So I just, made motion for a paper and a pencil. And I wrote, where am I? It couldn't have been more obvious. And she had to say, I know you're petrified, you're fine. You're in the hospital and you're going to get better. And so that was the beginning of it. But no, I couldn't talk for a long time. And unfortunately, I made a deal with God that if I get my voice back, I would just use it to do good things with.
Wow.
But, 10, 15 years later, I'm swearing like a trucker, and I haven't, it's not that I haven't learned my lesson, but I feel guilty about that to this day, that I didn't keep up my end of the bargain.
I know, you said that to me, and I have an answer for that.
Okay, good.
And it's a 2-second thing, because you're most important right now. The only one that was ever perfect walked on water. And I feel like I've known you my whole life, but you're not Jesus, and you don't walk on water. So when you think that, there's only one person that was perfect, and you live on the Cape, but you still can't walk on water. So I'd like you to remember that.
Well,
we all make mistakes.
Well, thank you, and I've come to realize that, and I think that the mistakes I've made, either in my prior life or this life now,
Yeah.
are a strength of this book, because if
Yeah.
this were about a famous doctor or Tom Brady, handsome, good-looking guy worth millions of bucks, I mean, people would look at it and say, yeah, but I can't do that.
Yeah.
That's not me. I'm just an average person.
Yes.
And that's what this is about. This
Yeah.
is about an average person being
Yeah.
saved.
Yes.
And if it can happen to me, it can happen to anybody.
Yeah.
It's a great message, and we're just getting warmed up.
Yeah. It's a great message, and then the obstacles you overcame, because I guess when you had to go home in the medical system. I cannot believe this. They sent you home, not rehab, not stayed in the hospital. They sent you home in this condition. 40 years ago, they sent you home, and your parents took care of you. I guess, and with me and with George, at what point did you realize what happened? Like, not what happened, but what happened with God?
And then I started to have grand mal seizures,
That's right.
and I was
That's right.
scared to death. This part of there was no skull up here. This was not open, but it was closed. Just a flap of skin, staples.
Wow.
I was a mess. Then I started to have grand mal seizures. Just when I thought
Things
couldn't get any worse, they did.
They did.
And they scared the living bejeebers out of me. I was petrified.
Yeah, because you never know when they're going to happen.
And that's when I asked everybody I knew, doctors, family, am I ever going to be rid of these seizures? Because I can't live my life like this.
Yeah.
Flopping around like a fish out of water. I couldn't do
Yeah.
anything. And no one could tell me if
Yeah.
I was ever going to get better again, if I was going to be seizure-free, never have another one, or what was going to happen. And they were telling the truth, unfortunately, but they took my hope
Yeah.
from me
Yeah.
for a better day tomorrow. And it devastated me. I didn't want to live anymore.
Yeah.
If I was going to have seizures every other day or something like that. That was a real low point for me.
When we only have 5 minutes, which I can't believe, but when you put the pieces together, it was hard for you because you were your brain was in trauma, not just your body, but your brain. Now today, no one would ever suspect. Really, I talked to you on the phone many times. Just wouldn't suspect. At what did you wake up one day and say, "Well, I think I'm good"?
I tried and failed. Had many jobs because I just couldn't keep them, and relationships was terrible. I never should have gotten married. Things were just going wrong every single day, it seemed like, and this stretched on for years. So finally, I got a job working for a tree company. I don't know anything about trees, but it's the only company that would hire me.
Yeah.
Because everything my resume said I could do, I couldn't.
You couldn't do anymore. Yeah.
So I started working there, and it was great for me. It was physical, and it was really tough. Yeah, and that I figured that this is when I'm going to either die on the job, or I'm going to get past this
Wow.
whole seizure thing.
Wow.
And that's how it worked. I worked like an idiot, like a fool, and I didn't care. I mean, I got heat exhaustion, heat stroke. I got everything. I'd fall down, bee stings. I mean, it was a but that was my proving ground, and it gets better from there. There's some real good lessons we learned, but we haven't started to. I know you have time constraints, so I won't carry on.
But you'll come back, so that's okay. That you'll come back, and I think the most important thing, a couple of things, and for you and I, we know this. Ask, talk to God. There is a higher being. We call him God. There's hope. We're not insignificant, and we do the best we can. And are you afraid of death anymore?
No.
I don't think I am.
Good.
I don't think I am.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. And I don't think the other thing is I don't think I question where the people I love are now. I have to feel that they're safe, they're happy, they're still around us. I do feel they're still around us in many ways. And that, when they say they're in a better place, they are. They're in a beautiful place, and hopefully we'll all be together someday. But I don't want to be afraid of dying, but I know when God takes me, it'll be my time.
We just jumped over a bunch of critical stuff, okay?
We really did. But you come back.
I will. I call it the universe of souls. There's a spot that's just for you. You're expected to be there, and all the love anyone has ever felt for you is there. It's your nest throughout eternity. And every time someone thinks of you, that nest gets bigger, and love can't be, it never expires. It's always there, and that's what you exist in. That's the quick explanation, but it's absolutely, it's a dynamic situation, not a static one.
And honestly, pick up the book, read the book, because we just went really quick over this whole 30 minutes, but Jim died. He was dead in the woods, in the ice cold, for probably over 2 hours.
I have no idea. I have no idea.
And he saw beautiful things that gives us hope. And he has a message, and it's in this book, Pen, Paper, Prayer, Jim Holmes. And Jim will come back, so we'll talk again. But never, ever stop having hope.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Faith, and just ask, and just ask.
There are lots of good people out there willing to help. Case in point.
Oh, case in point.
Thank you.
So join us again. And again, Pen, Paper, Prayer, James Holmes. Get it on Amazon. You will not put it down. And it's a great, true story. So let's wrap up. Thank you for joining us. We'll be back again next week. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. I thought it was Mary Jo.